Hello, bonjour, huedat, dumela, legai, salibonani, linjani, magadi, mulishani, mulibwanji, habari. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining me from. Thank you, as always, for joining me and making the time to be with us. So this is Get to Know Them. These are Ego Wings facilitators. These are women and men that just give of themselves. These are women and men that spend time and again putting together the information that they have to just impact, to grow us, to change us, to make us a better people, and to also help us be better in these new challenging times of this pandemic. These are women and men that just have it in themselves to make sure that they don't keep the knowledge to themselves and they give it to us as well. My name is Candy and I'm your host. This is episode 12. Oh my goodness, what a journey I'm on. And I'm sure for all of you that have actually been with me from episode 1 until now, you have enjoyed getting to know who these amazing people are. Today, I'm joined by an amazing facilitator. This is an amazing, incredible, phenomenal, energetic woman. This is a woman who gives of herself. She is a coach. She talks to entrepreneurs. She talks to corporates. So if you're looking at ways in which you can make yourself better, this is this person that you need on a daily basis. She also is so passionate about the woman. She believes that when you empower a woman, you actually develop a village. So she goes out of her way on weekends sometimes to communities to help them develop. And who does she target? She targets the woman because she understands that a woman is born a nurturer. A woman is the foundation of any community, of any home, of any village. I use the term village because this is Africa. This is where we're from. And for us here, what brings us up, what makes us to be who we are is a village. We are surrounded by women that always believe that if they shape you into shape, you will be that better person. So today we're not here to get to know about her professional life. Today we are here to get to know what is she about? What makes her tick? What does she love to do for fun? What does she not like? What moves her? What shakes her on a day-to-day? What does she love about just the day-to-day life if she's not on that platform that we are also used of seeing her, or when you're not dealing with her on her own professional space? Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Miss Tebello Mokhema. And this is an amazing afternoon for me because I am just blown away and I'm excited. She is a person who is so busy, but today she's made the time. So again, thank you for joining me. And allow me to just introduce this phenomenal woman. Tebello, thank you so much for being with us today and for making the time. How are you?
Thank you, Kendi. Good morning to you and to the listeners. I'm good. I'm blessed. I'm good. Thank you.
Oh, it's lovely to see you, as cheerful as always. So today, I'm sure you've heard from the introduction, we don't want to get to know who you are in your professional space. We just want to dive in and just open that door wider and wider to get to know who you are and what just makes you. So who is Tebello? What is Tebello about? Who is she?
Tebello is a lady, because I can no longer call myself a girl. Tebello is a lady born and bred in Sharpeville, in South Africa. Firstborn of 3 children, and the only girl in the house. So as I grew up, being the only girl, almost ended up being kind of the semi-mother of the house. To this day, my brother says to me, oh, I remember how, we always had to look up to you and you always made sure that, we were taken care of. So born and bred in Sharpeville, schooled in Sharpeville, through what we called then in South Africa, Bantu education. And then for the first time in my life, at the tender age of 16, I had to leave home and go and study at the University of Durban, Westville. My poor mother wanted to die. How could I leave her and go almost 600 kilometers away from her at this tender age to go and study? But I am grateful to her, you know, for having agreed that I go away, because I think that's really where I grew up. That's really where I became an independent person at that age. So sometimes when people ask me about growing up, I tell them, guys, I left home when I was 16 and I've never gone back home. So this is where my independent streak, you know, comes from. Yes. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so you say your poor mother, you know, felt the gap that my baby girl is leaving. How was it for you? I mean, when you, the excitement must have been there when you knew that you're going to uni, but how was it for you leaving your comfort zone? What was the experience like for you, apart from the excitement? What was it like?
I think the biggest thing for me, Kendi, was that I knew that I shouldn't disappoint my parents, right? That was a big thing at that stage. This was, what, 1989. This is after the big riots in South Africa, in Gauteng, and in Sharpeville. And having this opportunity to go to this, you know, faraway place and getting to stand up on my own. So on the one side, there was the element of not disappointing my parents, but also on the other side, there was the element of, you know, exploring and finding out who am I in this space. And when you know what university is like, right? You think you were the top one at school, and then you get to university, and then all of us are the top ones at school. And now you realize that, I have to pull up my socks. You know, I have to stay focused. So it was a wonderful time. If ever there was a time that grounded me in terms of who I am today, in terms of really wanting to achieve, really wanting to ensure that I help others, and also stepping into my leadership capability, it was when I was at that university. Yeah.
So do you think that you being the eldest child of three and having two brothers behind you, that is what propelled you to always step into the leadership role? Would you say that's one of the...
Yes, I think to an extent it did. Even though you know what happens to us children who are the eldest, there's an element of you that sometimes just feels like, I just want to be a child. I don't want to be this leader. I don't want to be the tutor. I don't want to be the cook. I don't want to be, you know, my mother. I just want to be me. However, sometimes when you look back at your life, you realize that that is how your life was always going to pan out. And you can't run away from that. You know, I have had many roles in my life, and every single time I sit and I say, why do you want me to be the leader? And people say it's because we can see the leadership quality in you. So I then had to start accepting and embracing that that's a role that I'm going to be playing most of my life, if not all of my life. Yeah.
1998, you know, is a defining year for a lot of people here in South Africa. And for you, that's when you sort of spread your wings and went out there. How did you just dive into the element of going to university? How did you dive into the leadership role with everything that had happened up to 1998? How did you just say to yourself, I'm going to make it? Were there times when you had to still look around you and, you know, feel unsafe? Or what was it like for you? I mean, just diving away from home, not having mom and dad to protect you as your number one front. You were now going out. You were going to be the number one front. You were going to depend on you before you could depend on other people. So how was it in 1998 for you?
I think one of the things one of the qualities that I realized I've always had, I go in and as I meet people, I trust people. So before I even get to know more about you, I go in with an element of trust. So at the age, I mean, this is the age of what, 16, 1989, I don't know anybody at university. In fact, no, I knew one guy. And how did I know him? Because his mother and my mother were friends in Sharpeville. So we were first years in chapel, but that's who I knew. And I didn't know anybody else. So I then realized that all of us are here to learn, all of us are here to achieve something. And I needed to build, relationships. In fact, one of my longest friendships is a girl that I met on the first day when we arrived, because we realized that both of us were just young girls coming. She was coming from Kroonstad, I was coming from Sharpeville. First time that we were there, we knew anybody, and we became friends. And to this day, our friendship, still exists, and it's still going on strong. So it was really about, and I think because I came from a loving home, to tell you the truth, growing up, I didn't really experience a lot of what I came to realize that people experienced in their homes when they were growing up. I grew up in a very loving home. So I stepped out and I worked with that love and trusted and got to know people. However, at the same time, there was an element also of not being careless in my world. I'm not saying that other people were careless, but in my world, there was also an element of not being careless, because I realized that I'm here, I'm on my own, so I have to protect me first, before I can protect anybody. So I have to look after number one, and I have to protect number one, and that is me. And that is what, kept me going. Obviously, staying in touch with my parents, staying in touch with my family, and as you talk with the parents regularly, they keep reminding you why you have gone so far away, so you can't disappoint them. I do have to say, my parents were those types of parents. You can't be disappointing us, So there was a lot of that. However, the environment that I found at the University of Durban-Westville was such a wonderful, welcoming environment. This is 1989, when this university, at that stage, I think we were the second group of Black students, and when I say Black African students, that got to be accepted at the university, because it had been mainly created as a university for Indian, children. And now here we are arriving. So we kind of had to look after each other, and the ones that had been there before us had to look after the new ones when they were arriving, and make sure that, we don't find ourselves hit or injured or anything, because it was a highly politicized, environment. I still remember in 1991, when, or 92, when Madiba came out, the first official conference of the ANC was then held at the University of Durban-Westville. So you can imagine the excitement of, knowing that Madiba was around, and meeting him. Bumping into him at the cafeteria, and like, he's alive, he's real. So it was that kind of environment. We were focused on our studies. We knew we were living in a politically turmoil environment, but we were excited about the future. We were looking forward to a new and different future.
Fantastic. So before I close this particular question, I'm in awe that, Mandela just came out, and the first place he came to was at your uni. What was it like for you? I mean, can you go back in time and just share with all of us? Because not a lot of us were privileged to be close, to him as you were. We were at stadiums when he addressed us. We were at meetings when he addressed us. For us who are in South Africa, we had that privilege. But I think for you, you had it up close and personal at such a tender age. What was it like to see him and to actually realize that we were free because of this person who stood up for values, for things that he believed in? What was it like for you?
I have to say, I think that was probably one of my first groupie moments, because when I saw him, I was starstruck. I didn't. Guess what? Guess what I did? I said to him, "You have such a beautiful smile." That's all I remember. I didn't know what else to say to him. I just said, "You have such a beautiful smile." Oh man, I'll never forget that. That's all I could say.
Wow.
And you know, being Madiba, as humble as he was, you know, thank you, asked what we were studying, and I was there with a friend, and we were telling him what we were studying and preparing for exams, and basically he just said to us, focus on your studies, because you are the leaders that we are going to be looking up to in the future. We are old, but you guys are young. So become, you know, work hard so that you become the leaders that we can look up to in the future. But yeah, all I said to him was, you have a beautiful smile.
You know what? At least you got to talk to him. And you were right. I mean, his smile was just infectious. Even now, when you look at his pictures, you just don't stop smiling yourself. So you didn't say something that was not true. And thank you for saying it on all our behalfs. You did well. I think you did very well. So my next question to you is, what does Tebello love? What do you like? What do you love?
Oh, what do I love? You know, I'm a golfer, so golf is what I love. It's an integral part of my life. I love seeing and engaging with people that are looking, you know, for opportunities to grow themselves, right? Number one. And number two, that when one engages with them, you are able, you know, they give you the opportunity to impart and to share your knowledge, you know, and experience with them. I love Africa. We met as we were traveling, you know, throughout the continent. I fell in love with this continent, and then when I realized, when I was traveling, and I got to know more about the continent, there's a part of me that was saddened, because as South Africans, remember, we were told all sorts of negative and bad and ugly things about the continent. And then you go into the continent and you travel and you realize, hold on a minute, there's a lot more that I can learn, you know, from my African brothers and sisters. So I love being out there in the continent. In fact, you know, one of my, I was saying to my brother the other time, I said, you know, one of these days, my first trip, I want to go to Zanzibar, because it's been my dream to go to visit Zanzibar. But it's because of the warmth and the beauty of our people in the continent that I want to go to Zanzibar. I've traveled into many countries in this continent, and I always look forward to the opportunity of getting into a place in the continent, learning more about them, learning about who they are, what they do. You know, I love when I travel in the continent, I always ask, you know, one of the locals, and I say, can we go to your community? Because I want to see and I want to experience what it's like living and being in your community. So I love this continent of ours. Yeah.
Powerful, absolutely powerful. Two things that I've picked up, you know, in what you've shared. So the first one I'm going to dive into is the continent of Africa. You are so right. And I think a lot of people would look at you and me and say, of course you love your continent because you are, you know, on the continent itself. But I think it's more than that. It is, you've just nicely described it. It is the Ubuntu factor of the continent. So for me, if you had to give, you know, our listeners just one thing that you'd want them to take out of them coming to visit the continent, and it doesn't matter which, you know, which country they decide to come to, what is that one thing that you'd want them to look out for, where they should, you know, have an open mind when they land? What is that one thing that you just want them to open their eyes to and try and fall in love with that? What advice would you give them on that?
I think it would be get to know the people. Get to go to the places where the people live. Yes, you can arrive at a place, spend time at the hotel, but find half a day, find a half a day, and get one of the locals to take you to their communities. Because when you get to see how the community lives, when you get to feel the love in the community, right? When you get to feel that warmth that you are received within the community, you then recognize that we are all part of this one species, which is the human species. And there is something that binds us. There is something about looking at somebody that you say, this person looks like me, or this person looks like somebody that I know. But even deeper, feeling, you know, if you are of an African or a white or an Asian descent, but when you're engaging with them and feeling them and feeling that I feel like I'm with my people. I feel like I am in a place where I can be myself. That's the one thing I would say you do. If you come to visit, you know, Africa, as you said, any part of the continent, and all you do is you just spend time working and in your hotel, you have not experienced us. You need to find time, even if it means asking, you know, one of your colleagues if you can go and have dinner with them at their home. Because when people open up their home to you and they welcome you, and the uncle or the aunt or the neighbor comes through as well to join for the dinner, you know, and then that's where you feel the warmth. That's where you feel the love that our people from Africa have for each and every person. So that's the one thing. Go out, spend time with the people.
And you know, Tebello is on point. There's something about Africa, and it doesn't matter which country you go to. There is this thing that we have about family. So and we're not talking about immediate family in your home. So if you're a husband, wife, and your 2 kids and that's it. No, there is this thing about community, about extended family. So your neighbor is your family, you know, the neighbor across the street. And we have this excitement when someone is visiting us from another country. We call in everyone to say, come and see, Tebello is here. So you will find that when you're invited to dinner, like she's saying, you will have not just 4 people in a home, you will get to meet 8 people, and the diversity in those 8 people is just phenomenal. So Tebello, I love that. Last thing on this question, you talked about golf. What is your handicap? Are you able to share your handicap with us?
Let me put it to you this way. My handicap index, because it's a new formula that is in place. So my handicap index right now is 9.9. And for golfers, they would know that that's quite a good, you know, good handicap. This is a sport that I picked up, where are we now? About 20 years ago. And at that stage, when I started playing, it's because my then husband used to play, and I said to him, I'm not going to be a golf widow, so I'm going to go out and play with you, because I'm not going to be sitting at home and waiting for you, you know, to come back after 5-6 hours. So that's how I got into the sport, and I fell in love with it. And every time I play and I have a good game, I keep thinking, how I wish I had started playing at a much younger age. I think I would have become a professional golfer in one way or another, because I just love the sport. I love it.
You know, it's never too late, hey? I mean, I watch, you know, I watch these tournaments, and some people that have won some of these, you know, tournaments are not young. I mean, I think there was a golfer, I stand to be corrected, who won at 55. So look, I've seen you swing that club. I follow you on your social media pages, and there is this profession, and I'm like, whoa. So don't worry, I will be right behind you the day that you take part in this, the PGA, the South African PGA, or the Nedbank PGA. So Tebello, it's never late. You've got cheerleaders right here in me, and I know a lot of other people are going to cheer you on. Time is moving, so my second last question to you, Tebello, you give so much of yourself like any other facilitator. I mean, people have seen you on different platforms. You know, you have gone and facilitated. You have been a moderator. You know, you have given advice on different topics. When did the penny drop for you that speaking was one of the hats that you wanted to wear among many that you wear? When did you know that this is what you wanted to do? You wanted to give of yourself, because to be a speaker, to be a facilitator, to be an MC, a master of ceremony, is a lot that goes into it. It's preparation, it's putting hours into having this brilliant, you know, bulk of information that you have to unpack to your audience to make sure that they all have aha moments. So when did that penny drop for you that you wanted to stand on, you know, on different stages and just give of yourself?
Interestingly, the penny dropped when I was at high school, because I was part of a debating team, right? And I realized that the one thing I was not afraid to do was to stand in front of people and to speak. So it's something that over the years one has been doing. However, when I worked for our electricity utility here, and this was about 1995, 1996, I then had, an opportunity to be called on to MC on a number of platforms within the organization and outside of the organization. And that's when I knew that one day I want to do this for a living. One day I want to be an MC on a global stage. And I'm blessed that I've been able to do so, even on stages that I had not anticipated, that I'd be able to do that. I still remember one time emceeing an event where we had CEOs of airlines in the continent. And I still remember standing there looking at myself thinking, here is this young girl from Sharpeville, standing and addressing heads of businesses, people that are managing businesses, that run into multi-million dollars, and I was engaging and they were listening. And deep down, that's when I knew that this is something I have to do. And so in 2019, after being in the corporate space for about 25, 26 years, I then decided I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this for myself. And I'm going to do this so I can share also with other young people and make them recognize that if you have a dream, if you have a passion and you follow it, you can achieve it and you will live a fulfilled life. Yeah.
Powerful, absolutely powerful. Before I go to my last question, I love what you alluded to. There are people listening in now, and there are people who are going to listen to this later when we post it on the social media pages. What is that advice that you can give to someone that has got this burning desire? Because I think all of us have got this desire on the inside. You know that this is something you want to do, but it is that fear. It is not knowing who to talk to or who to approach. What advice can you give to that person who's afraid, who is not sure, who is, just in a space of unknowing? What is that one advice you can give them?
I think the one advice I would give them, Kendi, and I've said this to you before, is use your voice. Find your voice and use it. And in using your voice, I'm not saying speak loud. I'm not saying speak to crowds. I'm saying find the voice and speak to the one person that you want to speak to. Speak to the Mandela and tell him he's got a nice smile. Because you never know the nugget of information, the nugget of wisdom that you could get from them, just from them hearing you speak to them. So don't be afraid to go to the person and ask for the opportunity to speak to them. Because by having the confidence to then speak to the one person, you then get the confidence to speak to 2 more people, to 10 more people, 100 people, 1,000 people. So never, ever let your voice not be heard. Always ensure that your voice is heard. That's my big advice to anyone.
Powerful, absolutely powerful. And to close off, I cannot believe time has come, to this point again. I'm not liking these, Tebello. I mean, I'm loving them. And then just when I'm about to dive in even further, time comes to, to us to say goodbye. But anyway, so before we close, Tebello, COVID came to all of us globally. We didn't see it coming. We didn't know what beast it was. We didn't know it was going to rob us of our loved ones. We didn't know that for so many people, they were going to lose jobs. There were going to be salary deductions. Everything that you can think of, I think, has happened to all of us. We are still trying to navigate. And as you are, in your professional space, when you stand on that stage, I'm sure you also do tell people to think outside the box, to look at different ways of doing things differently. For so many people, Tebello, it's very, very hard. What's that one advice that you can give us all listening in on just how we can, keep moving, keep living and keep doing whatever we need to do with COVID, because I don't think COVID is going anywhere. It's here to stay. Vaccines are out there. It's just learning how to live with it. So what's that advice you can give us? What should we do going forward in this new era that we are in?
Kendi, thanks for that question. And I think what is critical about what you've said is the fact that COVID is not going away, or the conditions under which, you know, COVID has been around are not going to go away. Sorry, Candy, there's a machine. I have to pause this. I have to pause it. COVID has done, right? COVID
Absolutely.
has in these unusual situations where you are working and the gardener is here and the maid is here and everything is happening at the same time, and you have to, you know, keep your eyes focused and your ears focused. So actually, that's a very good, you know, example. In that what COVID has done, and it's showing for all of us, is that all the conditions that we never thought would happen, the conditions that I'm working from home, that I have to use technology as much as I have to use it, and data, and so on and so forth, they've all kind of come all to us at the same time. And for some people, yes, it has been a matter of, I don't know, people have felt overwhelmed, you know, about what has happened. What I want to say to them is that acknowledge the point that you are overwhelmed. Acknowledge what is it that makes you to be overwhelmed, but don't spend so much time on those points that are making you to be overwhelmed. Also then start thinking, what does this mean for me? What opportunity has this brought for me? Because for many of us, what COVID has brought, it's brought, you know, a lot of opportunities that we had never thought of, or they may have just passed at one time in your head, and now all of a sudden you realize, I actually have the opportunity to do this, you know? So yes, a lot of people would go and feel overwhelmed, and I'm saying to them, acknowledge it, but don't dwell in it for a long time. Then look for the opportunities to say, what opportunities has it brought for me, and how then do I take those opportunities and, you know, adjust my life to be able to accommodate this? Because for the next 2 to 3 years, these are the conditions that we're going to live in. And this might be our life going forward, you know, and to eternity for most of us. So acknowledge it, deal with it. And also for a lot of the people that are here, I know that most of you are parents. Also be aware in terms of how you behave and you respond to this. Because remember, children do not do what you say, they do what you do. So they are watching you. And they're saying, if this is how mom responds, if this is how dad responds, that is the best response that I need to have. So also be aware of how you are responding to the situation, because your young ones are looking at you and watching you.
Wow. And there you have it. We've come to an end of episode 12. Tebello, thank you so much for joining us. What an absolute pleasure, you know, just to having dived in and gotten to know who you are. You have walked us through your journey, and I promise you, for me, yep, I will always remind you on those small little things that we've discussed about today. So thank you so much, Tebello, for joining us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Candy.
Great. So you heard it. We got to know who Tebello is. Tebello spoke to us today on a couple of things. And the one thing that stood out for me is that even if she didn't know what to say to the great Nelson Mandela, she literally spoke to him about what she saw, and that was his smile. And for me, I'm learning to say, even if you are overwhelmed, even if at a particular moment when you're in a situation and you don't know what to say what you see. Even if it's just complimenting someone, even if it's just saying, nice to meet you, but say something. And she did. She made that impact. And the person that Nelson Mandela was, he literally said to her, study, you be the leader of tomorrow. And here it is. She is one of those leaders who is helping us in our day-to-day lives. She also spoke to all of you who do not live on the African continent. And if it's the first time that you're coming to Africa, get to visit people, get to know who we are. Even if you are here for a conference, should things get back to normal and the vaccines are working okay, or you are here on holiday, get to visit a community. If you can't go to a community and you're here with a friend who's a local, just say, can I have dinner with you? And trust me, you will get to know what we mean by Ubuntu. And for us, that just means, you know, I am a person, you are a person. mingle with me, get to know me. We are one. It doesn't matter about our race. I can be black, you can be white, you can be Indian, you can be colored. It doesn't matter. And she said, through that, you will get to know who we are, because you will get to feel, you will get to see, no matter what you've heard. The media is there to tell stories from their side, but get to know us, because we are a loving people. The other thing that she just shared about, COVID going forward is, let us learn to dive into the new norm. Let's not be frozen. Acknowledge when you're afraid. Acknowledge when you cannot do something, but do not be in that hole for a long time. Climb out of it. And the one thing that I think Tebello really emphasized today is, do not be afraid to just voice yourself out. There are so many things happening. Find that one person that you can speak to. Find that one person that you can say, I am drowning, or I cannot do this. Believe me, in these times of COVID, we are all becoming very compassionate. People are being aware. And she spoke to parents. Remember, and it's not just children, it's anybody in leadership. If you're running a corporate company, if you are an entrepreneur, as long as you've got people below you, this is that one time, I think, for all of us as humanity, where we're looking to leaders to see how they're dealing. If a leader is panicking, trust me, we're all going to panic. If the leader seems to have it together, we are all going to have it together. So what a session. I have learned so much, and I'm sure you have. And that's what these episodes are all about. We look to people like Tebello when she's standing on stage, and we assume, what is she telling us? She's got it all. She seems prim and proper. But at the end of the day, she is a person like me and you. So on that note, thank you so much for joining me. Join me again next week for another amazing, phenomenal episode. Until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. As Tebello said, be that leader that does not panic. If you need to panic, go into a closet, panic, come out, and be happy again, and do it all over again. I'll see you again at the same time next week. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye.